Hi, welcome to Regenerative Live's first online class. Today we're going to be talking about food and where and how to buy it to minimize your impact on the planet. I'd like to start by just saying that this is the information we have right now is the best options, but the research is showing that these practices are actually very beneficial to the planet, and how you buy food actually does really matter whether or not these practices are actually implemented or not. So we're going to start off with a little bit of an introduction. And I just want to start by saying that every time you purchase food, you're basically voting. So you're voting for what type of food is produced, whether that be soda or potato chips or vegetables. You are voting with your dollar. You are also voting for where your food comes from. Is it coming from big companies like Pepsi-Cola? Or is it coming from small local farms who are trying to help with the climate change crisis? And also, you're voting for the food production model. Is it an industrialized model that is actually a part of the deforestation and soil degradation? Or are you buying from and supporting regenerative agriculture, which is actually helping with the climate change crisis? So let's start by talking about common purchasing. And common places that most people have been told to buy food are things like grocery stores. Grocery stores is by far the biggest place to buy food, but also convenience stores, gas stations, even pharmacies sell food, fast food restaurants, anything that's fast, cheap, and easy. And advertising is really what drives people to these places, because you don't see ads for your local farm on your television. You see ads for grocery stores, you see ads for Pepsi and chips and all of these kinds of foods. So whether you believe it or whether you are conscious of it or not, advertising actually drives you to purchase food from these places. And it's also the type of food you buy. You don't often see advertising for fruits and vegetables because they're not huge money makers. And chips and soda are. They're cheap to make, they're easy to make, and you can mass produce them. So there's some alternative food choices that are much better that we're going to dive into more detail. One is farmers markets. Your local farmers market is a great place to buy food. Probably the best option is, the best two options are CSA boxes. These are community supported agriculture boxes. These are boxes that are sent to you on a weekly or monthly, however you want, basis directly from a local farm. Growing your own food is definitely the number one way. It's the best way to get your food. But I know there's a lot of limitations to growing your own food, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. So you can also get it directly from local farmers. You can contact them directly if they don't have a CSA box. You might be able to set up a pickup time where you can actually get the food to you directly. So changing where you buy your food can also have a huge impact on your health. So buying food from places that benefit the health of the planet are also going to benefit your health as well. The healthier the food, the more nutritious it is, the more nutrient dense the food, the better your health is going to be. Also, the health of the soil is a huge predictor of the health of the food and therefore your health. So we're going to talk a little bit about health as well. All right, so we're going to talk about why common food purchasing is really not good for the planet. So buying certain products from certain companies adversely affects the planet and your health. So we're going to talk about the planet first. So food grown conventionally, there's a lot of soil degradation going on because of our monocrop farming or conventional farming. There is no way to build up soil if you are using one crop, so your soil ends up looking like this over time. So what happens after soil degradation happens is farmers actually leave that land, and what happens is we deforest more land with rich soil and plant again. But the problem is the soil degradation, if it gets this bad, takes forever. I mean years. You're talking 30 years to restore the soil health. And if it's not 30 years, it's a lot of work having to be put in by the farmer to restore the soil. A lot of money, a lot of compost has to go on there, a lot of cover crops, a lot of water, a lot of resources have to be used to restore the soil health. So like I said, also deforestation is a problem. With monocrops, we are cutting down and creating more and more and more farmland. And as a result, we're losing a lot of our forest land. Also, conventional farms, because they're monocropping, they have no protection from bugs, from animals, or from any other environmental issue. So what do? Like weeds, we just spray them with chemicals. We use the chemicals, and unfortunately the chemicals killed not only the weeds, but the good and important insects and wildlife and microbes in the soil. Fossil fuels, most of the conventionally grown food travels all over the world. It's not just 100 miles to your grocery store. Sometimes it's across the country, sometimes it's from different countries. Sometimes it's from Mexico or South America, or even sometimes Europe. It travels a long way, and as a result leads to this, a lot of fossil fuel put into the atmosphere. Also, transportation. Like I said, it's traveling hundreds and thousands of miles, so we have to transport that. That's also not good for the environment. So also, when we have food that has to travel long distances, it has to be packaged, and a lot of times it's packaged in plastic. We already know we're having a huge plastic problem on this planet. The Pacific garbage patch is the size of basically 3 Texases. Texases? But anyway, it doesn't break down. Plastic doesn't break down. It just goes into smaller pieces, and then it's ingested by wildlife and gets everywhere. Also, the PCBs are these chemicals in the plastic break down and get into our food system. They get into our fish, they get into other animals, and then they get into us when we consume them. So plastic's everywhere. So this conventional model of farming is not sustainable, and it's not good for our health. So we're going to now talk about how it's not good for our health. So the first is the chemicals used in a lot of these conventionally grown crops. They use pesticides, they use herbicides, all to control all these so-called pests and weeds. And as a result, those chemicals are getting in our body. And in small amounts, yeah, they're safe. But over time, the buildup of these chemicals can cause cancer and a lot of other problems. We're already seeing that Monsanto and Bayer have been sued and actually have been having to pay a lot of money. 2 lawsuits now where it was proven that glyphosate or Roundup has caused cancer. So this is something that's not good for our health, and it's not good for the planet. Also, food that's conventionally grown is much less nutritious. It has much less nutrients in it. You compare something conventionally grown to something organically grown, even versus something wild grown. And the wild grown is going to be the most nutritious because it has the most nutrients from the soil, because the soil is the healthiest. Then you go to organically grown, which is also good, just a slight step below the wild food. And then conventionally grown, you're at least half the nutrient value. And that doesn't even account for once it's transported. As it's transported, the more days it goes on the shelf, the less nutrients it has. Also, conventionally grown and big food companies are making food that is extremely addictive and also not good for you. So what's happening is we get in this cycle of this addictive food. We can't get rid of the addictive food. We can't get rid of the addiction because it's always there. We're being bombarded by advertisements for this addictive food. We're being bombarded by it being right by the checkout, the candy bars and the chips right by the checkout line. All of this is designed to get you to buy it. And the addiction part is just part of the way that these companies make money. They've made these foods so addictive that you have to have it. And that's the sad part. Imagine if fruits and vegetables lined the checkout line. You'd probably be more likely to pick those up. So just something to keep in mind. And you are what you eat. And that's so true, and we're finding this out more and more with microbiome studies. Your gut is very predictive of your health. Those microbes that are in your gut are very predictive of your health and your immune system health and even your mental health. The gut-brain connection is huge, and sometimes just changing diet can cure things like anxiety and depression. and it's great, the studies that are coming out. And I'm definitely going to have a free class on the microbiome coming up, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. But also, we're perpetuating metabolic disease and chronic health problems. The majority of health issues in this country are preventable, and they're preventable by diet. Diet and exercise are the two main things. So this model is just not sustainable. We have to change the way we buy and consume food. So here are some solutions. Like, this is not, the world's gonna end. There's a lot of solutions to planet health. There's sustainable and also regenerative solutions. And just to keep in mind, I'm gonna have free classes on all of these solutions. So I'll go into much bigger detail about each one in the coming months. So regenerative agriculture and permaculture are the two biggest movements right now in agriculture and farming. And these models are good for the health of the crops as well as the health of the planet. Regenerative agriculture has actually been shown in multiple studies to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, and at the same time helps the food grow extremely nutritious. And the animals, if you are a meat eater, the animals in a regenerative agriculture model help the regenerative agriculture model. They actually help with pulling the carbon out of the air. So you see these industrialized farming animal farms, and they're actually adding so much carbon dioxide to the air. It's one of the biggest polluters we have. Except now we look at a regenerative agriculture model. Instead of adding to it with our animals, we are actually pulling it out of the air. So regenerative agriculture is something that, if you're interested in, take a look at it, and also research which regenerative agriculture farms are around where you live. Permaculture food forests. This is what I'm doing in my yard, actually. Permaculture is very similar to regenerative models. I haven't found a good definition to separate them. The way I look at regenerative agriculture is it's more of a farming model that uses plants and animals. Permaculture does as well, but I think permaculture focuses more on using beneficial plants to help the soil as well as growing food. So permaculture is a very cool model. It mimics nature in the way that you plant it. So it's not one crop. You're planting a variety of fruit and nut trees, and under those fruit and nut trees, you're planting plants that are good for the soil, plants that are good for insects, and also any medicinal and food crop plants around your forest. So you're building this forest of trees with food on them, as well as plants underneath that can be harvested or are good for the soil. If you live in an urban area, urban farming is becoming huge, and it's great to see in areas like New York City and in San Francisco. In big cities as well as small cities, we're doing urban farming. These use biophilic design solutions, which I think the most common is rooftop gardens. There's a couple ways that rooftop gardens are extremely beneficial for the planet. So rooftop gardens can actually keep heat in and keep cool in, so it actually decreases our energy use in terms of air conditioning and heating. But it also provides food for lots of people. So urban farming has become amazing. Also, buildings are now being designed for vertical gardens, so planting up the sides of buildings or even on the inside walls of buildings. So maximizing the space to grow healthy food. So that's something urban farms are doing. As well as suburban. You're seeing a lot of sidewalk grass areas being converted into vegetable garden beds, community vegetable garden beds. Which is amazing. I think that's a great use of the space instead of grass. So restoring soil health is a big one, and this is what regenerative agriculture, its main reason for doing all of this. If you restore the soil health, you pull carbon out of the air, you make the plants healthier, and therefore you make the community healthier. So like I said, redesigning suburban landscapes, what we're doing, or what people are trying to do, is redesign their own front yard. Instead of having grass and plants that are just good to look at. We are now switching to native plants that require less water. Plants to encourage insects like butterflies and honeybees and bumblebees to come back, as well as planting more food. So instead of planting, a very beautiful looking tree, you can plant a peach tree in your front yard that is also very beautiful. The blooms are just amazing. So redesigning suburban landscapes is something that's also helping the planet. So you might want to look into that. I would definitely look into permaculture if you're looking to redesign your landscape. We are also going to have a free class on that as well. So also just rethinking our communities and how we interact with our communities and how we spread information and how we come together to create these projects. And I think that is where change is going to come from. It's going to come from the communities, the individuals and the communities, not the government. So what can you do? So I would do your research first and foremost. If any of those topics spark your interest, just do a Google search. You'll get a ton of information. Invest in farms and companies employing the techniques I just told you about. So permaculture or regenerative agriculture or even simply organic farming. I mean, that's the best option. And shop local. Whenever you can, avoid the grocery store, avoid the convenience stores. It's so easy to sign up for a CSA box. So easy. Just look up Google local CSA boxes and they'll pop up and you can choose what goes in those boxes. And it doesn't matter if you have dietary restrictions, you can put that in and the farmers will not include that in your box. It's so convenient. It's more convenient than the grocery store. Farmers markets. Farmers markets are an amazing way to connect with your local farmers and to connect with your community and to ask questions about how the food is grown and where it's grown and how far it's traveled. And the best thing you can do is grow your own food. And I know that people think it takes so much effort to grow your own food. But even if you're only growing one thing, say just a bunch of tomatoes in your garden, you are making a difference. You are helping to restore the soil and you're putting your money towards something that is healthier for the planet and for you. So growing your own food is huge. And if you don't think you can afford to start, there are a lot of programs out there that are willing to help you for free. There's a lot of nonprofits educating and starting gardens out there. So I would Google that as well. All right. So solutions for your health. So buying food from CSAs or regenerative agriculture farms or permaculture farms or local farms or organic farms, all of these make your food have much less chemicals. Your food is way more nutritious. You're consuming more whole foods instead of packaged foods, which are more nutritious and better for your health. It's going to decrease your chance of metabolic disease in the future. So things like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, all of those things can basically disappear if you're eating a nutritious diet. So this also decreases chronic health conditions like chronic high blood pressure, chronic heart problems, diabetes, etc. And it also changes the food culture for the benefit of your health. If you are investing in these practices, if you are buying your food from these places, you are starting to change the culture of how food is produced in this country. And that is the biggest thing. If we want change, it's going to come from individuals and how they spend their money. And how you spend your money is going to benefit your health. Absolutely. And the health of your children and your grandchildren and generations to come. So what you can do for your own health is, once again, do the research, okay? Make sure you know that you are buying the most nutritious food you can for your body. Eat only whole, or what I like to call nature foods. If it doesn't look like it came from nature, don't eat it. And these are things like staying away from the center of the grocery store, only buying produce and things from the bulk section like beans and rice and nuts, and the meat section as well, as long as it's grass-fed. But invest in your health. People always tell me, but these are the most expensive methods. Not necessarily. The produce at my local farmer's market that's organically grown is much cheaper than at Whole Foods. It is much cheaper than organic food bought at Safeway or other big grocery stores. So invest in your health. even if it is slightly more expensive, it will pay off in the long run. You will save money on things like medical bills. You will save money on just your time. You will have more energy and be more productive if you are investing in your health. And I know that's hard to quantify and it's hard to see, so it's hard for people to make these changes, but I'm telling you now, invest in your health now and you will not regret it, and you will actually save money in the long run. And don't cheap out on food. If you're going to cheap out on anything, don't cheap out on food. Food is medicine. It is the best thing you can do for your health. So if you're gonna spend your money, spend it on good quality food. And if you don't have a local CSA, you can't make it to the farmer's market, you can't grow a lot of your own food, then simply try to buy organic. Also, if you can't afford all organic food, go on, search the Dirty Dozen list. And if it's a food that shows up on the Dirty Dozen list, then buy it organic. If it's on the Clean 15 list that comes out every year, then you can buy it conventional and not have to worry about all those chemicals. But in general, buy organic. So implementing this stuff, I would just say start small. Start really small. I'll tell you, my journey started when I was 20. That was 13 years ago. And I've slowly made changes in how I eat. And I think it's made a huge difference in my overall health. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it has. And it's also made me feel better. It's connected me more to my community and my land. But starting small, just one change. I mean, even if you're just changing one vegetable on the Dirty Dozen list from conventional to organic, or if, say, eating seasonally is a small change, or just visiting your local farmer's market is a small change. So it's just one change at a time. I mean, one change begets the next. It's a domino effect. Once you start, you're on the right path, you're going down the right path, you're all good. But make a plan. I mean, I'm a planner. Make a plan. Do your research. Make a plan for how you're going to implement it. Implement your plan, and then repeat with the next step. Take one small change, research it, plan to make the change, implement the change, kind of reflect, and then repeat with the next change. Get help if you need it. Ask questions. You can always ask questions on these classes. You can go on Facebook or my Instagram account, ask questions, reach out to your farmers. Recruit your community of friends and family to join you and help hold you accountable for these changes. Help them to make the changes so that it becomes a community thing, a family thing, something that you can bond over. That's always makes it a lot easier to implement change. Going further, so here's where you can get involved if you want to, but getting involved in community activism, talking to your local government about food policy, demanding changes in food policy, writing to your senators and representatives to tell them how you want food produced in this country, and joining the worldwide climate change movement. It's huge, and it's people from all over the world are into this. People from all over the world are demanding that people change the way food is produced. And because of that, we can also help impact climate change. Also, lead by example. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of times people are very reluctant, especially when it's food, to change, because food is culture. Food is sacred. It's delicious, and it's something to be savored and enjoyed. It's not something to feel shame over. So trying to tell people and talking at them doesn't always work, because people have such emotion surrounding food. So I think the biggest thing is, if you want to make changes, don't expect people to automatically be on board. I would say just lead by example, do your thing, tell them the reasons you're doing it, and say, hey, I am not judging you, and I am not judging anyone else for how they do food. I don't know their situation. I don't know their monetary situation, their family situation. I don't know where they live. I am not judging by anything that you do with your food. This is just what I'm going to do because I want to do this. And that's where I think we can green shame people. We can shame people into changing, and that's not the right way to go about it. So I think the best way to go about it, lead by example. Also, volunteer at local regenerative farms, and a lot of the regenerative farms have programs for kids, for adults. They have cooking classes. They have amazing events. They have community dinners with live music, and they have tours. And Regenerative Farms, that's a lot. That's how they stay afloat, is your involvement in their farm. And they want you to be involved in their farm. So that's one thing you can also do, is volunteer or sign up for classes or just visit them. And even if you live in cities, a lot of these farms are very close and not far drives. And then check out existing models. I thought this was a cool model. It's called Serenbe, and it's this community that was created basically based on a sustainable model. It's a very cool, very, very cool community. So they're very into community. You can stay there if you want to. You can own a home there. But they have shopping and dining. Everything is locally sourced. They have their own farm. They have classes. They have art classes, community events, a farmer's market, design studios. I mean, you name it. Bookstores. It's a great place to live. They have outdoor activities. Everything is designed with the environment and people and community in mind. So they have a playhouse, and they have their own grocery store and their own foods. They have lots and lots of arts and yoga, and they have a spa, and their restaurants. Here's their farm. You can get involved in helping to pick the food for the local restaurant, which all their food is sourced from farm to table, to their restaurants. And just, it's surrounded by nature, and nature was a big part of designing this entire community. So this is just an example of designing community and food to be more sustainable and better for the planet. So now I'm just going to talk to end. I'm going to give you guys some resources to check out for more information. If you haven't already, these documentaries, In Defense of Food on Netflix and also Sustainable on Netflix, are two great documentaries to check out. Fed Up is another good one. That's about sugar and its impact on our health. That's a good one. So In Defense of Food is also a book. The Omnivore's Dilemma is also a good book. Unprocessed is a great book to read if you live in a city. She basically went on a journey to try to find the least processed food, I believe, if I remember correctly, in New York City. And she found it was really hard, and she uncovered a lot of stuff about the food industry. So that one's a good one. Nourishment is a brand new book, What Animals Can Teach Us About Rediscovering Our Nutritional Wisdom. It is a great book. It's a little hard to read if you're not familiar with some of the science, but not enough to deter you from reading it. It's got a lot of science, but it's also just a holistic, big picture type of book. It's not going to give you information on exactly how to eat, but it's going to give you so much good information about just following your intuition and your needs in terms of choosing what to eat. And it does basically tell you to eat whole nature foods, nothing from a package. But it's a great book if you want to check that one out. Also, Nourishing Traditions is also a great book. It's also a cookbook. In the beginning of Nourishing Traditions, there is all this information on nutrition, and then goes into amazing recipes. There's also a Nourishing Traditions cookbook for kids as well, which I also love because my kids get involved in the food. All right, so if you want more information or to find more classes like this, just visit regenlives.com. That's my website for more information. I also have short 2-minute videos called So You Want to Save the World videos, just little snippets of information on how you can live better for the planet and your health. I'm going to be posting lots more online courses. I also have workshops, personal consultations, community projects, and other resources on the website. Lots of books, lots of accounts to follow. So if you want to do that, you can visit my website. This is what it looks like. So this is what you can find. You can find all sorts of information. We focus on food, exercise and play, mindfulness, family and community, nature connection, rethinking your home, how you spend your money, and healthcare. All of these go into living a regenerative life. And we have workshops and consultations, online classes, videos. We also have a blog that's updated every single week for more information on how to live better for the planet. Also, you can leave us a comment below or ask us any questions and we'll get back to you. And please follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We post stuff daily, all sorts of information on from wild crafting to foraging your own food to growing better food to health and wellness to nutrition. Any of that kind of stuff, it's all on there. We are a very big picture, holistic educational company. So check us out. And thank you so much for tuning into our very first class. We hope you will come back. Thank you.